one between Wolfe and Alex. Let's see what they've locked into to get them the key to the success to that top cut. Alex, it's going to be the Aerodactyl and the Sylveon, and for Wolfe, it's the Hydreigon and Charizard.
So immediately Wolfe gets a ton of the offense out on the field. The Choice Scarf Hydreigon and the timid Charizard that can outspeed a lot of Charizards on the other side. Neither of them love to see the Aerodactyl, though. Hydreigon probably doesn't have the immediate offense to threaten a one-hit KO there, and Charizard, of course, does not like to see Rock Slide. And the Hydreigon has to be careful. If it tries to chase, you know, the thing next to Sylveon, it can just take a Hyper Voice back. That would be really negative. So this is definitely a dangerous turn. Aerodactyl, though, doesn't have Protect. And so if you want to just immediately fire off a Draco Meteor in that slot, you could, but no. Hydreigon, too risky in front of Sylveon, going to escape in the back, get Toxapex out on the field.
Great defensive switch in front of this Sylveon and his Aerodactyl, but Aerodactyl is going to take this first turn to Mega Evolve, get a little bit of boost to its speed, and also be able to fire off some really powerful attacks. Charizard going to protect itself, preserving that Mega Evolution for a little bit later, but now Alex gets to go out on the offensive. Tailwind first from this Aerodactyl. At speed, great to ensure that it happens, and Sylveon going to throw out a Hyper Voice. Toxapex freshly switching in is going to take a bit of damage here, but now can threaten that Wide Guard on the next turn.
Exactly right. The Wide Guard's so important here when you're facing down two Pokemon whose primary offense is spread moves, getting Toxapex on the field pretty safely, and now able to protect Charizard is so important. And a play we see so often from the Aerodactyl side, you know that you're threatening the Charizard enough that it has to protect itself. It's not going to just sit there and take a Rock Slide, so you don't even have to click Rock Slide. You can get a pretty free Tailwind out of the situation instead. But now Charizard looks like it's in a pretty good position. With Wide Guard on the table, Sylveon and Aerodactyl suddenly don't threaten this Charizard much at all. You can fire out a lot of damage back in either place. If you can chip down the Aerodactyl enough, then later on in the game, that means Hydreigon is much more of a realistic threat to just finish off Aerodactyl before it can move. But no, for now, Charizard just going to get in the back, keep trying to stay one step ahead of Alex's own pivots.
Incineroar is going to swap in to take that Charizard's place, knowing that this Aerodactyl can't actually go for a Rock Slide because that threat of that Wide Guard from the Toxapex would neutralize it. You're going to see that Dual Wing Beat instead, and a Hyper Beam from the Sylveon. Incineroar has to come in and take both of these attacks like a champ, but it gets felled. A double up into the Incineroar means that Wolfe is going to lose his first Pokemon of this game.
Yeah, double target that may have actually been threatening a KO on Charizard. If Sylveon in the Tailwind is faster than the Charizard and the Dual Wing Beat and the Hyper Beam is enough damage, then maybe you're trying to just burst past Wide Guard with enough damage for Charizard to move. If you can land a double up, it would be devastating for Wolfe. But Wolfe gets out to the Incineroar and then is going to be able to cycle Charizard back in. Now with Sylveon on a recharge turn and Aerodactyl at -1 attack, making the Dual Wing Beat much less of a threat. So you've reset the situation. You've given up Incineroar in the meantime, but you've made the world a little bit more safe for Charizard. And Sylveon can't switch out this turn, isn't infested yet, but with the recharge turn has to just sit on the field and recharge for now.
I love that you have to sacrifice this Incineroar, thinking about the greater good of the end game. This Charizard free and clear now to go for that Mega Evolution. You kind of forces Aerodactyl also into two moves that are not 100% accurate. Actually, none of the moves that this Aerodactyl have 100% accuracy, but Ice Fang and Dual Wing Beat. Those two attacks, Charizard will take a lot better. Rock Slide really off the table. It feels like with the threat of that Wide Guard ever present. So let's see what this Charizard is capable of. First things first, it's got a Mega Evolve. Get that Drought set, get that Sun to help boost up all of its Fire-type attacks. And Toxapex goes for that safe Wide Guard to ensure that this Charizard is successful. When this Tailwind is still going to let Alex use these attacks a little bit faster, we see the Rock Slide fail because of that Wide Guard. And let's see the speed interaction here. Charizard is actually faster than the Sylveon, even though it is in the Tailwind, so it's going to actually have to take this Heat Wave first. Unless we see the recharge turn.
I didn't see when the recharge turn. There's the recharge.
Oh, there it is. Okay.
Okay. Message just coming in at the end of the turn. Of course, Sylveon acting at some point in that speed order, but I don't think we get a definitive answer on whether it would move before the Charizard or not. Alex kind of forced, like, checking that Wolfe is actually going to click Wide Guard and not just let the Rock Slide through, but Wolfe, safe there, does click the Wide Guard, keeps Charizard safe for the turn. The Sylveon now has burnt that recharge turn, but also burnt a lot of its health point. If it is slower than the Charizard, then you can just outspeed and finish off the KO with Heat Wave. And if you're threatening just another Wide Guard plus another Heat Wave that picks up a KO, that's really significant. I think it's important to note that Alex has been so restrained in not switching out. despite having, you know, -1 on Aerodactyl, damage coming into Sylveon, only now making the first switch, getting Garchomp on the field.
Well, Garchomp will be able to take those fire-type attacks a little bit better, but I also feel like maybe a little telegraph that Charizard would want to try to protect itself here. The Rock Slide is going to be good since Toxapex doesn't try to wide guard twice, and the Garchomp gets in basically scot-free, unless it gets trapped in with something like Infestation. Garchomp's not the target, though. It's the Aerodactyl, and so Aerodactyl now has to take a little bit of chip at the end.
Aerodactyl will take a little bit of damage and crucially be locked onto the field in this last turn of Tailwind. If you can threaten a KO there, then you won't have to deal with a second Tailwind afterwards. For now, though, can just outspeed and go for a Tailwind in this next turn. Garchomp, like you say, comes in pretty safely, but unlike a lot of Garchomps, doesn't threaten this Charizard immediately nearly as much. No Rock Slide to kind of force the wide guard from that slot, so you can both Tailwind and Rock Slide at the same time and force a really passive turn from Wolfe and just get your Tailwind set up. Or you can swing out on the offense with Dragon Claw and Dual Wing Beat and just try to get as much damage into Charizard as possible. Though, getting Garchomp on the field does expose it. We talked about it being one of the few ways to actually beat Toxapex in the endgame for Alex. Maybe part of the reason he was so hesitant to switch it in earlier on, but now on the field a little bit exposed, but not too much at risk from these Pokemon. But Toxapex can always lock you in and then show something like a Hydreigon or a Mamoswine a couple turns later, and while you're locked in with Infestation, you can beat it, but no, just a dodge.
It's going to be a dodge of the Dual Wing Beat, as Garchomp was really hoping to be able to follow up that damage with that Dragon Claw. So Charizard's going to be great in a position to go for this Weather Ball and get some nice damage down into that Garchomp. Toxapex also is going to land at the Toxic, so at the end of this turn, Garchomp is going to be taking more damage, and that's going to be 2 Pokemon that Wolfe has been able to afflict with that poison status condition. They'll be taking more damage every single turn.
Right, you can see Wolfe setting up the end game for Toxapex now. Garchomp can have a lot more difficulty actually breaking through Toxapex when it's already this low. The Weather Ball really significant to mean that you don't need as many turns of Toxic, and the Toxic already there, so Toxapex doesn't have to spend a turn attaining it later on. And the health bars are disappearing pretty quickly. Aerodactyl, Sylveon, Garchomp all below 50% health. Though the damage on Charizard really important. It would have been better if it was also Dual Wing Beat, then you'd only need to threaten one of Dual Wing Beat or Dragon Claw, but you're still threatening the combination of both of them together to KO Charizard before it can move, which may, you know, force a Protect in this situation. But if you're not threatening Toxapex in the meantime, Wolfe may be okay with that. Like, we'll take passive turns, me protecting Charizard, switching Charizard in the future if you're constantly taking damage over time from Toxapex in the meantime. At some point, Alex is going to have to kind of turn on the pressure against the Toxapex, or he's going to lose too many resources to actually be able to beat it later on.
I feel like this is also a turn where Wolfe could really just go for wide guard and attack, and so we are going to see that wide guard first from the Toxapex. Make sure that this Aerodactyl is going to either have to go for another inaccurate move or just use that Tailwind. The Garchomp with the Dragon Claw, we saw it did not do enough for this to be a 2-hit knockout, so it will take a third. As Charizard fires off that Heat Wave in response, Aerodactyl and Garchomp, they're going to be taking the residual damage at the turn from the Infestation and the Poison respectively. Garchomp is barely able to hang on, but the Aerodactyl is out of here.
I think that was actually a really strong turn for Wolfe. Like, that kind of called Alex's bluff a little bit. If that had been Dual Wing Beat plus Dragon Claw, Charizard would have just gone down. The Heat Wave would have never happened, and then these Pokemon are a lot more healthy. But because Alex wants to prioritize the Tailwind there to set up for the Pokemon in the back, Wolfe is able to sneak the Heat Wave in, get really good damage into both of these Pokemon. And now the damage problem to Toxapex becomes really serious. The Burgraph has Twin Beam. It is super effective in Toxapex, but I can promise you it's not going to be that significant of a threat to actually beat Toxapex. Garchomp only has 1 turn left on the field. Toxapex can just protect that away, even if not now, later on. Sylveon also damaged and poisoned. Starting to quickly look like Toxapex is going to be able to carry the end of this game. Alex is going to need to find that pressure quickly. The good news is that at least Garchomp has the threatened KO against Charizard. Charizard's so low at this point, and you have the Tailwind pressure as well to be able to help with Sylveon in the endgame. But yeah, how do you ever break Toxapex at this point?
I wonder if because you also have to worry about that Hydreigon with the Choice Scarf that's lurking in the back for Wolfe. Revealed at the very beginning of the game, but you know that that's the Pokemon that this Sylveon would love to be in front of. I'm kind of hoping that we see something really spicy on this turn. It's going to be the Toxapex that ends up switching out those so that the Hydreigon can come back in. This Garchomp is going to be going down at the end of this turn, but it's also a trade, as Garchomp's not going to go down that easily without taking something with it. Oh, and the Farigiraf uses the Roar to get the Garchomp out of here. I was going to say Roar maybe to get the Toxapex out, but this is even better. The side Roar play to get that Sylveon in front of this Hydreigon.
Well, and the Roar is really clever as well, because you want Garchomp to be able to outspeed and KO the Charizard before it can move, but you don't want Garchomp to go down from poison at the end of the turn. So this lets you have your cake and eat it too. You get the Dragon Claw off, and then you Roar Garchomp off the field before the damage over time happens, but still it just is looking so impossible. Sylveon at this point so low that Hydreigon may be able to just pick up that KO. Despite the Tailwind, I would expect that the Choice Scarf Hydreigon will be faster than the Sylveon. And again, where does the damage against Toxapex ever come from?
And if you're worried about the special attack output from the Farigiraf, you could also just go for a Snarl on this Hydreigon. May also make the Hydreigon take a Hyper Voice from the Sylveon a little bit better.
Yeah, if you can get a Snarl into Farigiraf, really there's no damage against Toxapex, and so yeah, Farigiraf has to be preserved. Garchomp is just going to go down from poison at the end of this turn after switching in. Snarl is going to take the KO, would have been into the Farigiraf, but Sylveon already looking so low with the poison damage. It's not going to have any turns on the field.
Gonna have to get a lot of mileage out of this next one. As you see that special attack drop, Sylveon's gotta try to make up for that with a Hyper Beam. It does land into its target. The Hydreigon on the receiving end of this does get hit with a one-hit knockout. Sylveon has taken down one more foe, bringing Wolfe down to just this Toxapex. But we have seen Toxapex accomplish some amazing things in a 1v1, a 1v2, and it looks like Sylveon with the Infestation stacked on top of the poison might go down at the end of this turn.
And well, there it goes down at the end of this turn. It definitely isn't surviving through its recharge turn, but yeah, it does go down here. Forced into the Hyper Beam because of the threat of Wide Guard. You can't just click Hyper Voice and then get Wide Guarded on that turn, because then Hydreigon beats you forever in the end of the game. So eventually we get to a 1v1. It's Toxapex versus Farigiraf. A lot of times that's the game plan. You've got to beat everything around the Toxapex and then have preserved the right thing to beat Toxapex. We saw Wolfe lose earlier on in the day when he was Basket Legion on the other side. Is the right thing. You have the super effective Twin Beam, but how much damage is it? This is the crucial moment.
Wow, it actually looks like it's going to take two Twin Beams for 4 hits. No, I'll work out the math on that one.
It'll be a 3-hit KO.
Yes, because you are going to get the leftovers recovery at the end of the turn, and Wolfe is going to guarantee that with rotating through Toxic, Baneful Bunker, Infestation. Try to get these additional damages to stack up at the end of the turn for residual.
Yeah, it's going to be close. You may need a double protect from Wolfe's side. That Twin Beam doing a little bit more than I expected there. A lot of times the Farigirafs that have decided to run Twin Beam are investing pretty heavily in special attack, because you have to make sure you actually have the damage to threaten KOs on something like a Glamora. So this one doing enough damage. I mean, that's pretty significant, 50% to the Toxapex.
But there's still a Citrus Berry that this Farigiraf hasn't consumed yet. It hasn't gone down to that threshold of HP where that Citrus Berry would activate and let this Farigiraf recover. So we're going to have to get through several turns. And honestly, Len, with all of that HP, I'm not sure that Toxapex can do it.
I definitely have underestimated the draft here. You're right. With the Citrus Berry and with how much that Twin Beam did, with it successfully being a 3-hit KO, I don't think there's enough turns of leftovers to force it into a 4-hit KO by any means. Should be enough damage. Yeah, we'll see the second Twin Beam now, most likely the Infestation coming out afterwards. The Toxapex is going to be so low.
Toxapex pulled off an impressive victory in Game 2 versus Kotsukide, able to get 2 Baneful Bunkers back-to-back to secure that game and bring Wolfe into a Game 3. Maybe this Toxapex has a couple of extra Baneful Bunker, multiple protects left in it in order to bring Wolfe this victory, but Alex feels just a couple of turns away from being able to get this first game.
Yeah, I think if the Twin Beam had needed one more turn, if it had been a 4-hit KO, not a 3-hit KO, the Toxapex would have been able to withstand this. All those damage over times would have added up fast enough. But ultimately, the Farigiraf being completely healthy going into this end of the game looks like it's going to be enough.
One more Baneful Bunker just to see if you can play to that out. We'll stop this next incoming Twin Beam, and there will be some additional poison damage on top of that Infestation. It's starting to stack up. Len, if this is a double Baneful Bunker, this could be a win for Wolfe.
Yeah, I think it just needs one more. The Toxic adds up so fast. We're seeing how often for Wolfe it comes down to I need one more turn. And sometimes you get 1 in 3 chance of one more turn on the field.
30% chance for this Toxapex to make this double back-to-back Baneful Bunker. And the 30% of the time, it works 100% of the time. Toxapex is going to protect itself from this next Twin Beam. And if this Farigiraf goes down,
man, by a Razor's Edge field, which meant that the Garchomp always had full power Dragon Claws. If you can get Incineroar, a little more value out of Incineroar, it's much easier to play into that end game.
With how close it was in game number 1, I'm expecting this game to be just as electric. As we get back into it, Alex Gomez is going to be leading with the Garchomp and the Aerodactyl, and this time Wolfe has the Charizard and Toxapex in the lead.
Right, both players making adjustments. Alex may be getting a little bit the better end of it. In game 1, Wolfe led Hydreigon, but saw Sylveon on the other side and immediately had to get Hydreigon off the field for Toxapex. So this time he's one turn faster, already has Toxapex on the field, but now there is a very good target for the Hydreigon on the other side, the Garchomp already sitting there. But of course, it would have been easy for Garchomp to protect, Aerodactyl to Tailwind, and then Hydreigon's under threat. So maybe you're still happy to have Toxapex on the other field. On the field, the other thing that changes, though, is Alex has set 2 physical attackers on the field. This makes it very easy for Incineroar to come in and get a ton of value out of an Intimidate, but you got to watch out. You know, Rock Slide and Stomping Tantrum or Earthquake would be a lot of damage into Incineroar. I wouldn't be surprised to see it pretty quickly here, though, because otherwise, Charizard in a pretty difficult position. You don't want to spend too many turns with Toxapex wide guarding Rock Slide when you could be taking a lot of damage from Dragon Claw or Stomping Tantrum back.
So is Toxapex actually going to wide guard? Because this is the first step of the equation. You've got Incineroar in, that valuable Intimidate onto both Aerodactyl and Garchomp, and we see this Aerodactyl Mega Evolve. Maybe that means this Charizard is once again sitting on the bench here for Alex, but this time around, this Aerodactyl is going out on the offense. It's not setting Tailwind, it's set out that dual Wing Beat in the face of that Incineroar, and the Stomping Tantrum from the Garchomp is going to follow it up, but it goes into the Toxapex instead. Alex splitting the difference on the attacks, knowing that I can't let this Toxapex get to the endgame with a full HP bar. I may as well try to whittle it away now.
I think the other thing to keep in mind, Alex feeling that it was very likely there to be a wide guard, so doesn't want to risk Earthquakes and Rock Slides in that position, but also may have thought it was pretty likely that Incineroar was coming in. If you can catch it with Stomping Tantrum and Rock Slide on the switch, you can get a lot of value. Incineroar, they're not coming into the Stomping Tantrum slot. Toxapex, yes, takes some damage, but with your generator able to just heal that off in the future. Probably not going to be damage that sticks into the long term, but maybe if you can put some early pressure on it, you can at least make life difficult for Wolfe if you're threatening, double up damage to KO in the future. For now, though, I think Incineroar gets in pretty safely, not having to take any super effective moves, getting that Intimidate down, now having fake out pressure for the turn, and Wolfe getting the timer on Aerodactyl already. I think a pretty successful turn for Wolfe in the face of a lot of damage threat back the other way.
To the regenerator point on the Toxapex, if it feels like a great opportunity to get this Toxapex out of there, maybe that's something that Alice can capitalize on, expecting the Toxapex to end up switching out, or even expecting it to protect here to try to get that leftovers recovery. We see the Hydreigon come in to actually take this Incineroar's place as the Rock Slide gets let rip. Alex, not afraid of the wide guard in this moment, gets to land some damage onto the fresh Hydreigon. Oh, but the Garchomp goes for the Stomping Tantrum into the Incineroar, that Levitate ability there from the Hydreigon, making it immune.
Right, Hydreigon able to switch in pretty successfully here, not have to take that much damage from Rock Slide. Wolfe already capitalizing and getting more value out of Incineroar. Gets it in for a really valuable double Intimidate and gets it back out safely as well so he can come in the future. Stomping Tantrum does get boosted up, but you have now the Choice Scarf Draco Meteor to suppress Garchomp for a turn. You probably don't have to worry too much about it swinging out, but Alex has to be very careful as well. A Draco Meteor and Aerodactyl may already be threatening a KO, and if it's not threatening a KO, it's probably threatening the toxic finishes the KO at the end of the turn. Dragon Claw may also not be a KO depending on how the Hydreigon is trained, especially if Incineroar were to come back into the Toxapex slot and set a second Intimidate down as well. So yeah, Aerodactyl doesn't like this position. Going to get off the field, trying to catch a Draco Meteor with Sylveon.
Sylveon, a Fairy type, would be immune to that Dragon type move, as Garchomp is also going to save itself with a Protect Shield. So great call here from Alex. Try to play it safe on this turn, but it does leave this Sylveon vulnerable to the infestation. It can't switch out anymore since the Toxapex was able to land that.
Yeah, this is the way to make sure that Draco Meteor doesn't have any impact, and the way to take advantage of a choice item on the other side. You put a Fairy in one slot, you put a Protect in the other, Draco Meteor does nothing, and now you say, if you want to stay in, you're going to have to click Draco Meteor. I know you're not threatening my Sylveon, and I can just chase after the Hydreigon, and I can switch the Garchomp out to something in the back. But like you said, this is the same thing as game one. Toxapex slowly whittling things down, putting pressure on, and not really taking any damage back itself. Stomping Tantrum couldn't be thrown into Toxapex on that last turn because of the threat of Draco Meteor into that slot. Now I think it'll be really interesting to see if Wolfe does commit to just staying in. It does, yeah. So this could be a Hyper Beam for Draco Meteor exchange, or it could be a lot more for Wolfe.
But you're going to see this Draco Meteor from the Hydreigon land into the Garchomp. So this is a one-hit knockout. Yes, this Garchomp is out of here. But now the Sylveon said, okay, I got you. My teammate, you're not going to go down in vain. I can throw out a final attack here. But if it's a Hyper Voice, it's going to fail. Hyper Beam, though, from the Sylveon. It's not going after the Hydreigon. It's going after the Toxapex. It's already taken a bit of trip, but look at how healthy that Toxapex sits even after this Pixelate boosted Hyper Beam from the Sylveon.
So that is a lot of damage, right? Toxapex now looks pretty vulnerable, like you could chase it down, but it's going to get leftovers recovery. You're going to have to spin to turn recharging. It's likely going to get Regenerator. There's a reason the conventional wisdom is to fight everything and then fight the Toxapex, because if you spin mid-game turns, doing things like losing Garchomp just in exchange for damage, not a KO onto Toxapex, that can just get mitigated, and then suddenly it was a trade of Garchomp for nothing after that recovery comes back. I think maybe Alex trying to be one turn ahead there, expecting that the Hydreigon wouldn't stay in and just click Draco Meteor, maybe looking for Stomping and Hyper Beam to double up into the Toxapex, but Wolfe calls the bluff, says, I'm not going to let that happen. I'm going to throw the Draco Meteor into the Garchomp. I'm going to make you play honest. The worst case scenario is that you Hyper Beam me, have to spin a turn recharging, and I get Draco Meteor into like Farigiraf instead. There's always going to be some value because Garchomp had protected on the previous turn, so there's not that much to lose in that position.
It is going to be at -2 though, since the Draco Meteor does have that pretty significant drawback. But Farigiraf being nice and healthy, do you really want to keep this Hydreigon in? Got this one turn to buy for the Sylveon.
But there's also absolutely no pressure this turn, right? You can just switch Toxapex and Hydreigon because this Sylveon is going to have to recharge. The Farigiraf, as long as you're switching out Toxapex and not taking a Twin Beam, is not really offering any pressure in that turn. Incineroar loves to come in here. Like the best case scenario for Wolfe is catching Charizard, or best case scenario for Alex is catching Charizard with a Thunderbolt, but it's not going to be threatening a KO. It's just going to be a little bit of chip damage into Charizard. So this turn of passivity kind of lets Wolfe reset out of that last position, or he can chase more damage. Hydreigon can just throw a Draco Meteor and Farigiraf. It won't be punished on this turn. Toxapex probably does need to be a little bit careful here. You don't want it to go down to a Twin Beam too easily, but Hydreigon's going to switch, undo those Draco Meteor drops, get the Charizard out onto the field. Toxapex is going to stay in, just get Toxic down on Sylveon.
Well, there's definitely still some value to making sure that as many Pokemon as possible are going to be toxic. There's a lot of protects on this team, but look at Farigiraf going for another side roar. Gets Sylveon out of there. Since it had that infestation, it wouldn't be able to move off the field by itself, but that's where your Farigiraf partner can help you out with that. Bringing the Mega Aerodactyl back in the face of this Charizard.
I think that turn is not very helpful for Alex. I think trying to be one step ahead, expecting a very passive turn from Wolfe to maybe double switch and thinking you're going to at least get Sylveon off the field in exchange, but Toxapex just stays on the field. That could have been Twin Beam to just KO Toxapex and solve a huge problem. If Toxapex is gone, Wide Guard is gone, and then your Aerodactyl can come in and really threaten this Charizard. But now you at least have created a pin where if Toxapex wants to stay in and protect Charizard, then it's going to be itself vulnerable to Twin Beam. So this may force kind of one, maybe Charizard protects, Toxapex switches, but and then you can punish that as the Incineroar comes in, but it's not so easy for Wolfe. I think that last turn is still very positive. You took a big risk with Toxapex staying on the field and got rewarded for it.
Charizard is going to switch out, so what does this Toxapex end up doing as Hydreigon comes back onto the field with that Choice Scarf. Gets to select a new move if it wants, after it used that Draco Meteor a couple turns ago, and Incineroar is also going to make this just a full field swap for Wolfe. Hydreigon takes the dual wing beat from this Mega Aerodactyl. It's going to do a lot of damage to this Pokemon on the switch-in, but this Farigiraf goes for Thunderbolt 2. Does not want to risk having that Twin Beam fail into either of these Dark-type Pokemon on a switch-in, knowing they were both in the back.
Maybe also just looking for a Wide Guard plus attack with Charizard play. Alex really showing hesitance to ever use a spread move into a possible Wide Guard. Was only punished for it once so far in the set. But yeah, if it had been Toxapex using Wide Guard and Charizard attacking, dual wing beat plus Thunderbolt probably would have been enough damage to pick up the KO. Instead, Hydreigon comes into it pretty nicely. Of course, gives up a lot of health, but is now threatening a Draco Meteor in one slot or the other. You've got to catch it with Sylveon right now if you're Alex. Neither Pokemon could protect, so Wolfe knows he can land a Draco Meteor somewhere.
Oh, it's going to be the Dark Pulse. Okay, still, it's going to be a resisted hit into the Sylveon, but you would rather try to get some damage down, knowing that that could be a super effective attack into that Farigiraf a little bit later. Parting Shot is going to get this Incineroar back out rotation, and we'll see another Pokemon come in. Wolfe gets his choice. Is it going to be that Toxapex that had a little bit of Regenerator recovery as it was resting in its Pokeball, or is it going to be time to get this Charizard back in?
I think Charizard, you can't risk that it's Twin Beam coming into that slot. It is Thunderbolt though, so Alex catches the Charizard coming in.
Okay, but it's still pretty healthy.
It's not much damage.
No.
That's significant though. Yeah, so the Thunderbolt, not much damage after the parting shot. Looks like a very positive turn for Wolfe. He's put so much damage on the Aerodactyl that he doesn't even have to risk the Draco Meteor there. He's able to throw a Dark Pulse. Makes it a little easier to stay in here as well, because now you can throw a Dark Pulse at the Farigiraf. But yeah, Charizard taking the paralysis is so important, because I don't think we've actually seen the speed relationship. But if Sylveon would be moving first in Tailwind, it's moving over the paralyzed Charizard as well. If Charizard isn't paralyzed, then you just throw Heat Wave and Dark Pulse at Farigiraf, and I think this game is over. There's no way for Alex to recover from that situation, because Farigiraf can't protect itself, Aerodactyl can't take the Dark Pulse, Sylveon can't take the Heat Wave. But with Charizard paralyzed, you can still throw that combination of moves. It's probably still very potent. You would get the Dark Pulse into either Farigiraf or Aerodactyl, and then you would get the Heat Wave, because Sylveon shouldn't be able to finish off the Charizard in this point. But you're going to have to let Sylveon attack in between.
We've seen a lot of small chance things happen, but Wolfe doesn't want to risk trying to go for a Dark Pulse flinch. It's going to end up being the Toxapex that comes back in, so our Dragon can choose a new move later on, as Charizard, with this paralysis, is hoping to fight through that, Mega Evolving, setting the sun, hoping that it will be able to get through this turn. As Sylveon goes for the Hyper Voice, it's going to chip away at this Charizard and the Toxapex, but I think if it's going to end up being a Thunderbolt into this Charizard, then wow, it's going to be a survival anyway. Toxapex has to take this Twin Beam on the switch in. That's going to do a lot of damage to bring it down to a very much more reasonable Toxapex to deal with, and Charizard fights through that paralysis. A double connect on the Heat Wave. Sylveon's going to end up going down to the poison at the end of this turn, as Farigiraf also gets a little recovery back with that Citrus Berry.
Wolfe has been slowly grinding out a lead turn after turn. I think even that turn, Alex gets a couple things right. Really important that he catches, that was a Twin Beam into a Dark type to start the turn, but catches a little bit of damage on Toxapex. But you can see how far ahead Wolfe is, that even as that catch happens, the parting shot from a couple turns ago means there's not that much punish on Toxapex switching in. The Charizard can't be stopped from using Heat Wave on that turn because of the lack of damage on Alex's side, and so Charizard's able to get the Heat Wave that finishes off the Sylveon, and now things get really difficult because there's still the Intimidate working in the back to stop the Aerodactyl damage, and there's the Choice Scarf Hydreigon to threaten a bunch of damage here. I think you're really going to need speed control one way or the other for Alex. I think it's an important decision whether you go for a Trick Room that helps you more generally against the Hydreigon, or Tailwind here, which may not actually make Farigiraf enough faster. I think you can get a Tailwind though on this turn and at least move Farigiraf over both of these Pokemon and possibly threaten a KO. It's important to note too, with 2 KOs, you're never undoing that parting shot on Farigiraf at this point, which makes it harder to actually break a Toxapex at the end of this game. It's at least weakened this time, but yeah, you can get Regenerator, you can get Future Leftovers, you can get a lot of recovery back in the future. Incineroar loves to just come in here. That's just Intimidate. That's its only job at this point.
Wolfe, with 4 Pokemon remaining, is going to have a much easier time to continue to cycle in and out this Incineroar. He does end up giving up the Charizard in the process, but you've got Fake Out here to help out your Toxapex if it comes back in. Try to get some Citrus, I was going to say try to get like Poison down or something like that.
The Farigiraf will suppress Fake Out on the next turn. Charizard, though, has done its job. It beat the Sylveon, took that off the field, has weakened the board down to just 2 Pokemon. You've done so much damage mitigation at this point with both an Intimidate on the Aerodactyl and a Parting Shot on the Farigiraf, and now you've landed Hydreigon on the field with its choice of targets. Neither of these Pokemon can protect. There was no speed control on that last turn, and so Hydreigon should be able to just swing out against these Pokemon.
Totally forgot about the Armor Tail, because we have seen this, but I should have thought about this anyway, because Incineroar hasn't been clicking Fake Out at all this weekend on the matches that we have had on stream. Farigiraf or not.
Its job is just to Intimidate, and the Intimidates have been so valuable. We talked before this game that if we'll get more value out of the Incineroar, it could really change how these in-games played out, and it feels like this Incineroar being able to come in 3 times in this game, and every time land a pretty useful Intimidate, has really made it a lot harder for Alex to break through this damage. At this point, it feels like Toxapex is lurking in the back, waiting to see which of these Pokemon it might have to beat, but Hydreigon's going to get its choice of what to deal with. For now, Incineroar going to get out one more time, save one more Intimidate for the future, maybe save one more Regenerator for the future, as Dark Pulse can go into the Farigiraf.
It's actually just going to be a clean knockout from the amount of HP that Farigiraf has left, and so this Aerodactyl has the world on its shoulders to get Alex into this. Rock Slide comes out, it's not even going to get the KO onto the Hydreigon. Missing that feels critical. You see the Fist Bump, Alex knows it's over. Wolfe Glick wins Swiss Round 12 2-0 to move on to the top cut of the North America International Championships.
A Choice Scarf Pokemon loves to see a lack of protects on the other side. Both the Friggraff and the Aerodactyl not having it meant Hydreigon could safely throw a Dark Pulse into the Friggraff, pick up that KO, and then all of the Intimidate has meant that Aerodactyl didn't have the damage to finish Hydreigon. I don't think it would have mattered if it did. It wasn't going to beat the Incineroar coming back in, throwing another Fake Out and an Infestation, and the damage was going to mount. But Hydreigon staying alive means that Wolf can just throw a Dark Pulse there on this turn, can get more recovery with Baneful Bunker, and threaten the Fake Out in the future. Wolf cleanly winning this game.
Hydreigon throws out that